A term sheet is a non binding document that outlines the key terms and conditions of a potential investment deal. Term sheets typically contain 15 to 20 different provisions that fall into three main categories. First, the economic terms. These determine the financial aspects of the deal. Valuation is expressed as pre money and post money. Pre money valuation is what the company is worth before the investment, and post money valuation is pre money plus the investment amount. For example, a $20 million pre money valuation with a $5 million investment results in a $25 million post money valuation. Investment amount is straightforward, how much money the investor is putting in this case $5 million. An ownership percentage is calculated by dividing the investment by the post money valuation. Here 5 million divided by 25 million, which equals to 20% ownership for the investor. Second, the control terms. These determine who makes key decisions in the company. Board composition specifies how many seats each party gets on the board of directors. A typical structure might be two founder seats, two investor seats, and one independent director. Protective provisions give investors veto rights over certain major decisions. These might include hiring or firing executives, changing the business plan, raising additional capital, or selling the company. Drag along rights allow majority shareholders to force minority shareholders to participate in a sale. Tag along rights allow minority shareholders to participate if majority shareholders sell their shares. Right of first refusal gives existing investors the option to buy shares before they are offered to outside parties. Finally, there are liquidation terms in a term sheet. These determine how proceeds are distributed if the company is sold or liquidated. Liquidation preference determines the order in which different shareholders get paid. A 1x liquidation preference means investors get their original investment back before common shareholders receive anything. The preference can be non participating or participating in nature. Non participating means investors choose between getting their preference amount or their pro rata share of proceeds. Participating means they get their preference amount plus their pro rata share of remaining proceeds. Anti dilution protection adjusts the investor's ownership if the company raises money at a lower valuation in the future. Weighted average anti dilution is more common and founder friendly. Full ratchet anti dilution provides stronger protection for investors. Let me illustrate how these terms interact with a concrete example. Let's say there's a company called TechFlow which receives a term sheet for $3 million at $12 million pre money valuation. The basic economics show 20% dilution for investors. But the term sheet also includes 2x liquidation preference, full ratchet anti dilution, and participating preferred stock. If TechFlow sells for $30 million, here's how the proceeds would be distributed. First, investors receive $6 million due to their 2x liquidation preference. Then, because it's participating preferred, they also receive 20% of the remaining $24 million, which equals $4.8 million. So, total money that the investors get in this deal is $10.8 million. Total to founders and employees is $19.2 million. This differs significantly from a simple pro rata distribution where investors would receive $6 million and founders would receive $24 million. Term sheets also include several other standard provisions, for example, option pool, which refers to shares set aside for employee stock options. This is typically created before the investment, which effectively dilutes founders more than the basic ownership calculation suggests. Dividend provisions specify whether investors receive dividends and under what conditions. Conversion rights allow preferred shares to convert to common shares, typically at the investor's discretion. Registration rights give investors the ability to force the company to register their shares for public sale. Information rights require the company to provide regular financial and operational updates to investors. It's important to understand that term sheets are non binding except for certain provisions like exclusivity periods and confidentiality obligations. The final legal documents will contain much more detail and are what actually govern the investment relationship. Negotiations typically focus on balancing investor protection with founder control and upside potential. Different terms interact with each other, so changes to one provision often affect the other provisions. Next week in this series, I'll explain what are different exit strategies and how different types of exits affect various stakeholders. Stay connected and follow me for more insights. Thank you.